Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming, from wherever you've come from. It's an exciting evening of poetry ahead of us. In 1709, you weren't expecting that, were you? Towards the end of the Restoration period, a very famous critic of the day and wannabe playwright John Dennis was very exciting to be unleashing his brand new play on the British theatre-going public. He was particularly excited because he had a brand new sound effect. His brand new sound effect was the sound of thunder. An ingenious contraption which he had concocted of 3 wooden chutes running down the 3 sides of the stage, backstage, a bit like a big marble run, with a cannonball at the top, which would roll down. You get the idea. Unfortunately for poor old John, he wrote a turkey. And the management at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane took his play off before anyone really had a chance to see it. John found himself back in the Theatre Royal Drury Lane a few months later, watching a new production of The Scottish Play. Everybody look up, we're all right. Of The Scottish Play, when, blow me down, if he doesn't hear across the blasted moor of the first act the self-same sound effect that he wanted to unleash on the British public only months before. He stands up in the stalls, out of his chair, indignant, and exclaims to the entire theatre, "That is my thunder! By God! They would play my thunder, but not my play!" You've guessed it. That was the first night, ladies and gentlemen, that the phrase "to steal one's thunder" entered into the British language. Now, one person whose thunder would absolutely not be stolen on any stage here at the National Theatre was Helen McCrory's. You could try, but it wouldn't work. And it won't have escaped your attention, partly because it's on the website, and it might even be the reason some of you are here, that this evening is dedicated to Helen. And it's perfect, because Helen loved the National Theatre more than anywhere, and she loved poetry. And she supported Ali over the years with Ali's anthologies, and we did poetry readings together, and of course she would be here tonight. I want to say thank you to the National, because actually, really, you sort of inspired us to dedicate this evening to Helen. So thank you, Rufus. Thank you, the National team. Thank you to Ali for your anthology, which we're about to read from. It's brilliant. And then we have this beautiful cast of actors here who are going to read the poetry. And, well, what is there to say? I'm sorry if you were expecting other actors up here, but we are the best available in our price range. I'm not going to introduce them. You know who they are. Please enjoy the evening.
Helen completely understood my crazy heart ambition to light an explosion of interest in poetry and help bring it to a wider audience. And she was with me from the start with readings that were, of course, always electrifying. So it's an honor to dedicate the book and the evening to her. A Poet for Every Day of the Year has poems by 366 writers from across the world and across time that cover extraordinary events and ordinary happenings. We're not going to read you all of the 366 poems tonight, but we hope you enjoy the poems we have chosen and that you come away with your spirits a little higher than before. We will begin with a poem that is usually read on Burns Night. Like millions of teenage boys around the world, Robert Burns turned to poetry as a means of impressing a girl. Unlike most teenage boys, however, he went on to become the national poet of Scotland. Born in 1759 to a humble tenant farming family, he writes here in his Lowland Scots dialect, which might be tricky to follow at times, but the vital energy of the verse is abundantly clear.
Don't know how I got myself into this. My father-in-law, after a couple of gins, gave me a little tutorial last night. Addressed to a haggis. Fair for your honest, sonsy face, great chieftain of the puddin' race, aboon them I attack your place, pant, stripe or therm, weel are ye worthy of a grace as lang's me arm. The groaning trencher, there ye fill, ye hardies like a distant hill. Your pin would help to mend a mill in time of need, while through your pores the dews distill like amber bead. His knife see rustic labour dight, and cut ye up with ready sleight, trenching your gushing entrails bright like any ditch. And then, oh, what a glorious sight, warm, reeking, rich. Then, horn for horn, they stretch and strive. They'll tack the hindmost on they drive, till a' their wheel-swelled kites belive are bent like drums. Then old Goodman, mislike to reeve, bethink it hums. Is there that o'er his French ragout, or olio that would store a sow, or fricassee would mak her spew with perfect sconner? Looks down with sneering, scorn through view on sick a dinner. Poor devil, see him o'er his trash, as feckless as a withered rash, his spindle shank a good whiplash, his knee a nicked. Through bloody flood or field to dash, oh, how unfit. But mark the rustic, haggis fed. The trembling earth resounds his tread, clapping his wally neve a blade. He'll make it whistle, and legs and arms and heads will sned like taps of thistle. Ye powers, wha mak mankind your care, and dish them out their bill of fare. Old Scotland wants nae skunking ware that jops in luggies. But if ye wish her grateful prayer, gie her a haggis.
So you've got to love Robert Burns for writing an ode to a sausage. Here, with something rather less prosaic, is one of the great poets of the post-war era, Philip Larkin. Notoriously grouchy, Larkin observed of his own work that deprivation was for him what daffodils were for Wordsworth. But here, he's unusually cheery, and in this poem, although the cold is drawing on and the new lambs are struggling in the snow, we know that something wonderful is around the corner.
I don't do accents.
Nor do I.
Lambs that learn to walk in snow, when their bleating clouds the air, meet a vast unwelcome, know nothing but a sunless glare. Newly stumbling to and fro, all they find outside the fold is a wretched width of cold. As they wait beside the ewe, her fleeces wetly caked, there lies, hidden round them, waiting too, earth's immeasurable surprise. They could not grasp it if they knew what so soon will wake and grow, utterly unlike the snow.
Love can catch you in the strangest of places and at the most inconvenient moments, as these next three poems remind us.
When I am sad and weary, when I think all hope has gone, when I walk along High Holborn, I think of you, with nothing on
Something fluttered about my heart, like a bird caught in a snare. I blame the girl on the 14 bus. It was she who put it there.
Song by Wendy Cope. My love got in the car and sat on my banana, my unobserved banana and my organic crisps. We spoke of life and love, his rump on my banana, my hidden soft banana and my forgotten crisps. He kissed me more than once as he sat on that banana, that newly squashed banana, and those endangered crisps. We looked up at the stars, beneath him my banana, my saved from lunch banana, and my delicious crisps. At last I dropped him off and noticed the banana, alas, a ruined banana, and sadly damaged crisps. You'd think he would have felt a fairly large banana, and if not the banana, the lumpy bag of crisps. But he's the kind of man who'll sit on a banana for hours. Watch your banana and guard your bag of crisps. He waved goodbye and smiled, benign as a banana. I love you, daft banana, said I, and ate the crisps.
So, as we see, love doesn't always go as planned or as desired, and sometimes it doesn't go at all. Unrequited passion has been the inspiration for many a lovelorn soul through the centuries, often to excruciating effect for the listener. The waste paper bins of history are filled with the ineffectual musings of thwarted hearts. But here is one of the romantic masters, Percy B. Shelley, at his very best.
Love's philosophy. The fountains mingle with the river, and the rivers with the ocean. The winds of heaven mix forever with a sweet emotion. Nothing in the world is single. All things by a law divine, in one spirit meet and mingle. Why not I with thine? See the mountains kiss high heaven, and the waves clasp one another. No sister flower would be forgiven if it disdained its brother. And the sunlight clasps the earth, and the moonbeams kiss the sea. What is all this sweet work worth, if thou kiss not me?
As declarations of love go, few can match the sweeping romanticism of that poem. But history doesn't tell what happened, but one can't help wondering whether his intended might not have been a bit overwhelmed by such extravagant sentiment. But love poetry doesn't always have to be so bombastic. It can be simple, almost austere. And here is the master of brevity and understatement himself, Harold Pinter.
It is here. What sound was that? I turn away into the shaking room. What was that sound that came in on the dark? What is this maze of light it leaves us in? What is this stance we take to turn away and then turn back? What did we hear? It was the breath we took when we first met. Listen. It is here.
Sometimes love can seem impossible, especially when unconventional. Amy Levy is one of many women poets in the book who've been unfairly all but forgotten. Levy was a feminist trailblazer, a friend of fellow forward thinkers like Eleanor Marx, revered by Oscar Wilde amongst others, and a lesbian when this was, of course, still very much a taboo. This poem of hers gives a snapshot of a blossoming secret love.
At a dinner party. With fruit and flowers the board is decked, the wine and laughter flow. I'll not complain, could one expect so dull a world to know.
You look across the fruit and flowers. My glance, your glances find. It is our secret, only ours, since all the world is blind.
But not all love is romantic. Sometimes love is just love, and sometimes quite frantic and urgent. Many poets have had tragic or poignantly inspirational life stories, but few, I think, endured as much heartbreak and adversity as Lem Sissay did before becoming a national poetry icon. The son of an Ethiopian immigrant, he was separated from his mother as a child after he was mistakenly given up for adoption, when the former had only intended for him to be put in temporary foster care while she completed her studies. He was then sent to a Christian family who anglicized his name, ensuring he was lost in the system, before they too returned him to care. But through all this pain, he found a trusty companion in poetry.
Invisible kisses. If there was ever one whom, when you were sleeping, would wipe your tears when in dreams you were weeping, who would offer you time when others demand, whose love lay more infinite than grains of sand, if there was ever one to whom you could cry, who would gather each tear and blow it dry, who would offer help on the mountains of time, who would stop to let each sunset soothe the jaded mind. If there was ever one to whom, when you run, will push back the clouds so you are bathed in sun, who would open arms if you would fall, who would show you everything if you lost it all. If there was ever one who, when you achieve, was there before the dream and even then believed, who would clear the air when it's full of loss, who would count love before the cost. If there was ever one who, when you are cold, will summon warm air for your hands to hold, who would make peace in pouring rain, make laughter fall in falling rain. If there was ever one who can offer you this and more, who in keyless rooms can open doors, who in open doors can see open fields, and in open fields see harvests yield, then see only my face in reflection of these tides through the clear water beyond the riverside. All I can send is love. In all that this is, a poem and a necklace of invisible kisses.
Now we come to spring and our greatest of poets, William Shakespeare. Spring is a constant theme in Shakespeare's works. He's particularly fond of the month of April and mentions it more time than any other, perhaps because his birthday was on the 23rd. Here is Sonnet 98, with some of his most memorable April-inspired reflections.
From you have I been absent in the spring, when proud-pied April, dressed in all his trim, hath put a spirit of youth in everything, that heavy satin laughed and leaped with him. Yet nor the lays of birds, nor the sweet smell of different flowers in odour and in hue could make me any summer's story tell, or from their proud lap pluck them where they grew. Nor did I wonder at the lilies white, nor praise the deep vermilion in the rose. They were but sweet, but figures of delight, drawn after you. You pattern of all those. Yet seemed it winter still, and you away, as with your shadow I with these did play.
Ekphrasis may sound like a nasty fungal infection, but it is in fact the word used to describe a piece of writing that in turn describes a work of art. As spring draws on, we have two poems about the Greek legend of Icarus, the young man with wax wings who did not heed the warnings and flew too close to the sun. The first is an ekphrastic poem by the excellently named Imagist poet, William Carlos Williams.
According to Bruegel, when Icarus fell, it was spring. A farmer was ploughing his field. The whole pageantry of the year was awake, tingling, near the edge of the sea, concerned with itself, sweating in the sun that melted the wing's wax. Insignificantly, off the coast, there was a splash, quite unnoticed. This was Icarus drowning.
Now follows an alternative take by Carol Ann Duffy, a poet of many firsts. Before she was given the post in 2009, there had never been a Scottish, female, or openly gay poet laureate. This poem comes from her renowned collection, The World's Wife, which takes a wry look at the women behind history and mythology's most famous men.
Mrs. Icarus. I'm not the first or the last to stand on a hillock, watching the man she married prove to the world he's a total, utter, absolute, grade A pillock.
Margaret Atwood is of course better known for her dystopian novel, The Handmaid's Tale, but she is also an acclaimed poet. This poem takes another myth as its subject, that of the sirens, who would lure sailors dangerously close to the rocks with their song.
This is the one song everyone would like to learn, the song that is irresistible, the song that forces men to leap overboard in squadrons, even though they see the beached skulls. The song nobody knows because anyone who has heard it is dead, and the others can't remember. Shall I tell you the secret? And if I do, will you get me out of this bird suit? I don't enjoy it here, squatting on this island, looking picturesque and mythical with these two feathery maniacs. I don't enjoy singing this trio, fatal and valuable. I will tell the secret to you, only to you. Come closer. This song is a cry for help. Help me! Only you can. You are unique. At last. Alas, it is a boring song, but it works every time.
The pseudonymous Brian Bilston, the Banksy of modern poetry, here takes ekphrasis, or poems about art, to a whole new level.
A brief history of modern art in poetry. Impressionism. Roses sway in softened reds, violets swim in murky blues, sugar sparkles in the light, blurring into golden hue.
Surrealism. Roses are melting, violets are too. Ceci n'est pas le sucre. Keith is a giant crab.
Social realism. Roses are dead. Violence is rife. Don't sugarcoat this bitter life.
Abstract expressionism. So you violets, sweets, roses you are is. Red are roses blue. Sugar?
Pop art. Roses go blam, violets go pow, sugar is cool, you are so wow.
Conceptual art. Roses are red, coated in blood. A deer's severed head drips from above.
And so we come to summer. The anthology contains many of the greatest poems ever written from all over the world. This next one is from Japan. Haikus are a form of Japanese poetry which are briefer even than pinta. They're just 3 short lines long, and pre-translation, just 17 syllables. They usually express something succinct about a subject in nature. Here's one by the 18th century haiku master Issa about a familiar summertime menace.
Mosquito at my ear. Does he think I'm deaf?
This next one is by the 20th century Scottish poet and chronicler of the everyday, Norman MacCaig.
An ordinary day. I took my mind a walk, or my mind took me a walk, whichever was the truth of it. The light glittered on the water, or the water glittered in the light. Cormorants stood on a tidal rock with their wings spread out, stopping no traffic. Various ducks shilly-shallied here and there on the shilly-shallying water. An occasional gull yelped. Small flowers were doing their level best to bring to their curbs bees like aerial charabancs. Long weeds in the clear water did eastern dances, unregarded by shoals of darning needles. A cow started a moo but thought better of it. And my feet took me home when my mind observed to me, or I to it, how ordinary, extraordinary things are, or how extraordinary, ordinary things are, like the nature of the mind and the process of observing.
Yeats said, "The mind of man has 2 kinds of shepherds, the poets who rouse and trouble, and the poets who hush and console." Now we come to 2 poems, both born out of trouble, both extremely rousing, by 2 young poets whose stars are in the ascendant, Raymond Antrobus and Nikita Gill. The first in particular is poignant, since both the writer and the protagonist of the poem are deaf.
When Daniel Harris stepped out of his car, the policeman was waiting, gun raised. I use the past tense, though this is irrelevant in Daniel's language, which is sign. Sign has no future or past. It is a present language. You are never more present than when a gun is pointed at you. What language says this, if not sign? But the police officer saw hands waving in the air, fired, and Daniel dropped his hands, his chest bleeding out onto concrete meters from his home. I am in Brookellen Coffee House in New York, reading this news on my phone when a black policewoman walks in, 2 guns on her hip. My friend next to me reading the comments section, Black Lives Matter. Now, what could we sign or say out loud when the last word I learned in ASL was alive? Alive. Both thumbs pointing at your lower abdominal, index fingers pointing up like 2 guns in the sky.
Your ancestors did not survive everything that nearly ended them for you to shrink yourself to make someone else comfortable. This sacrifice is your war cry. Be loud. Be everything. And make them proud.
It's often been said that Ireland has the best poets, and the late Nobel laureate Seamus Heaney is admired by readers everywhere. He believed that poetry could bear values into the world that are critical, that poetry can concentrate our attention at a space between the difficult reality of the world we inhabit and our more honourable desires. He's often quoted by politicians. In fact, Joe Biden read this poem during his summer 2020 run for the Democratic nomination for president.
Chorus from The Cure of Troy. Human beings suffer. They torture one another. They get hurt and get hard, can fully right a wrong inflicted and endured. History says, don't hope on this side of the grave, but then, once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up, and hope and history rhyme. So hope for a great sea change on the far side of revenge. Believe that the farther shore is reachable from here. Believe in miracles and cures and healing wells. Call miracle self-healing, the utter self-revealing double take of feeling. If there's fire on the mountain and lightning and storm and a God speaks from the sky, that means someone is hearing the outcry and birth cry or new life at its term. It means once in a lifetime that justice can rise up and hope and history rhyme.
William Wordsworth is often defined by 2 things, daffodils and the Lake District. So it's nice to find him on a trip to London on a dazzling September morning, just around the corner from this very theatre.
composed upon Westminster Bridge. Earth has not anything to show more fair. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by, a sight so touching in its majesty. This city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning. Silent, bare, ships, towers, domes, theatres, and temples lie open unto the fields and to the sky, all bright and glittering in the smokeless air. Never did sun more beautifully steep in his first splendor. Valley, rock, or hill, ne'er saw I, never felt a calm so deep. The river glideth at his own sweet will. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty heart is lying still.
And as we enter the autumn of our evening, here is the boy wonder of the late Romantic period, John Keats, with his stunningly immersive and highly evocative ode.
To autumn, season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to bend with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more, later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has o'erbrimmed their clammy cells. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swath and all its twined flowers. And sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press, with patient look thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Think not of them. Thou hast thy music too. While barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubbled plains with rosy hue, then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn among the river sallows, borne aloft or sinking as the light wind lives or dies. And full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. Hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the redbreast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies.
History has often been captured brilliantly in poems, encompassing not just the events, but the emotion of momentous events. A poem is that voice in history which is saying something different, or to put it another way, it's telling the truth, but telling it slant. This familiar piece was written 5 weeks after the disastrous October battle of the Crimean War, from which it takes its name. Tennyson immortalizes the feelings of catastrophe. T.S. Eliot described Tennyson as the saddest of all English poets. He dealt openly with grief and loss, such as in his opus In Memoriam, which gave us the line, "'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all." This poem sums up the danger and futility of war as powerfully as the World War I poets who would follow.
The Charge of the Light Brigade. Half a league, half a league, half a league onward, all in the valley of death rode the 600. "Forward, the Light Brigade! Charge for the guns," he said. Into the valley of death rode the 600.
Forward, the Light Brigade! Was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldier knew someone had blundered. Theirs not to make reply, theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die. Into the valley of death rode the 600.
Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them, volleyed and thundered. Stormed at with shot and shell, boldly they rode, and well, into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell, rode the 600.
Flashed all their sabres bare, flashed as they turned in air, sabring the gunners there, charging an army while all the world wondered. Plunged in the battery smoke, right through the line they broke. Cossack and Russian reeled from the sabre stroke, shattered and sundered. Then they rode back, but not the 600.
Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon behind them, volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell, while horse and hero fell. They that had fought so well came through the jaws of death, back from the mouth of hell. All that was left of them, left of 600.
When can their glory fade? Oh, the wild charge they made. All the world wondered. Honour the charge they made. Honour the Light Brigade. Noble 600.
As Shakespeare says, a sad tale's best for winter. In years gone by, ballads would help families while away long winter evenings before Netflix came along to amuse them. Here are two of my favourites. The first is by William Robert Spencer. His poem tells the Welsh legend of Llewellyn, Prince of Wales, and Gelert, his faithful, ill-fated hound.
Beth Gelert. The spearman heard the bugle sound, and cheerly smiled the morn, and many a brach and many a hound obeyed Llewellyn's horn. And still he blew a louder blast, and gave a louder cheer. "Come, Gelert, come! Thou'rt never last Llewellyn's horn to hear. Oh, where does faithful Gelert roam? The flower of all his race, so true, so brave, a lamb at home, a lion in the chase." 'Twas only at Llewellyn's board the faithful Gelert fed. He watched, he served, he cheered his lord, and sentinelled his bed. In sooth, he was a peerless hound, the gift of royal John, but now no Gelert could be found, and all the chase rode on. And now, as o'er the rocks and dells the gallant chidings rise, all Snowdon's craggy chaos yells with many mingled cries. That day Llewellyn little loved the chase of hart or hare, and scant and small the booty proved, for Gelert was not there. Unpleased, Llewellyn homeward hied, when near the portal seat his truant Gelert he espied, bounding his lords to greet. But when he gained his castle door, aghast the chieftain stood. The hound all o'er was smeared with gore. His lips, his fangs ran blood. Llewellyn gazed with fierce surprise, unused such looks to meet. His favourite checked his joyful guise and crouched and licked his feet. Onward in haste Llewellyn passed, and on went Gelert too, and still, where'er his eyes he cast, fresh blood gouts shocked his view. Overturned his infant's bed he found, with blood-stained covert rent, and all around the walls and ground with recent blood besprent. He called his child. No voice replied. He searched with terror wild. Blood, blood he found on every side, but nowhere found his child. Hellhound, my child's by thee devoured, the frantic father cried, and to the hilt his vengeful sword he plunged in Gelert's side. His suppliant looks as prone he fell, no pity could impart, but still his Gelert's dying yell passed heavy o'er his heart. Aroused by Gelert's dying yell, some slumberer wakened nigh. What words the parent's joy could tell to hear his infant cry, concealed beneath a tumbled heap, his hurried search had missed, all glowing from his rosy sleep, the cherub boy he kissed. Nor scath had he, nor harm, nor dread, but the same couch beneath lay a gaunt wolf, all torn and dead, tremendous still in death. What was then Llewellyn's pain? For now the truth was clear. His gallant hound the wolf had slain to save Llewellyn's heir. Vain, vain was all Llewellyn's woe. Best of thy kind adieu. The frantic blow which laid thee low, this heart shall ever rue. And now a gallant tomb they raise, with costly sculpture decked, and marbles storied with his praise, poor Gelert's bones protect. There never could the spearman pass, or forester unmoved. There oft the tear-besprinkled grass Llewellyn's sorrow proved, and there he hung his horn and spear, and there, as evening fell, in fancy's ear, he oft would hear poor Gelert's dying yell. Until great Snowdon's rocks grow old and cease the storm to brave, the consecrated spot shall hold the name of Gelert's grave.
The next ballad is from the music hall tradition. It was written by Marriott Edgar, who was earning his living in the early 1900s as a pantomime dame before the famous comedian Stanley Holloway recognized his writing talents and asked Edgar to write for him. This became hugely popular.
The Lion and Albert. There's a famous seaside place called Blackpool that's noted for fresh air and fun, and Mr. and Mrs. Ramsbottom went there with their young Albert, their son. A grand little lad was young Albert, all dressed in his best, quite a swell, with a stick with an horse's head handle, the finest that Woolworths could sell. They didn't think much to the ocean, the waves, they were fiddling and small. There was no wrecks and nobody drowned. In fact, nothing to laugh at all. So, seeking for further amusement, they paid and went into the zoo, where they'd lions and tigers and camels and old ale and sandwiches too. There were one great big lion called Wallace. His nose were all covered with scars. He lay in a somnolent posture with the side of his face on the bars. Now Albert had heard about lions, how they was ferocious and wild, To see Wallace lying so peaceful, well, it didn't seem right to the child. So straightway, the brave little fella, not showing a morsel of fear, took his stick with its horse's head handle and shoved it in Wallace's ear. You could see the lion didn't like it. For giving a kind of a roll, he pulled Albert inside the cage with him and swallowed the little lad whole. Then Pa, who had seen the occurrence and didn't know what to do next, said,
Mother, yon lion's at Albert.
and Mother said,
Well, I am vexed.
Then Mr. and Mrs. Ramsbottom, quite rightly, when all's said and done, complained to the animal keeper that the lion had eaten their son. The keeper was quite nice about it. He said,
What a nasty mishap. Are you sure it's your boy he'd eaten?
Pa said.
Am I sure there's his cap?
The manager had to be sent for. He came and he said,
What to do?
Pa said.
Yon lion's at Albert and him in his Sunday clothes too.
Then Mother said,
Right, young fella. I think it's a shame and a sin for a lion to go and eat Albert and after we've paid to come in.
The manager wanted no trouble. He took out his purse right away, saying,
How much to settle the matter?
and Pa said,
What do you usually pay?
but Mother had turned a bit awkward when she thought where her Albert had gone. She said,
No, someone's got to be summonsed.
So that was decided upon. Then off they went to the police station in front of the magistrate chap. They told him what happened to Albert and proved it by showing his cap. The magistrate gave his opinion that no one was really to blame, and he said that he hoped that the Ramsbottoms would have further sons to their name. At that, Mother got proper blazing,
And thank you, sir, kindly.
said she.
What, waste all our lives raising children to feed ruddy lions? Not me.
From unalloyed silliness to melancholy and madness, this next poem is a Villanelle by Sylvia Plath. If you were to Google Villanelle now, you would come across pictures of Jodie Comer in Killing Eve. But in Poetry World, it describes a strict verse form, where amongst other constraints, the first and third line of the first verse are repeated throughout. What's striking about this poem is how it reflects the fragility and confusion of Plath's mental health, while observing a robust and highly disciplined structure.
Mad Girl's Love Song. I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. I lift my lids and all is born again. I think I made you up inside my head. The stars go waltzing out in blue and red, and arbitrary blackness gallops in. I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. I dreamed that you bewitched me into bed and sung me moonstruck, kissed me quite insane. I think I made you up inside my head. God topples from the sky, hell's fires fade, exit seraphim and Satan's men. I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. I fancied you'd return the way you said, but I grow old and I forget your name. I think I made you up inside my head. I should have loved a thunderbird instead. At least when spring comes, they roar back again. I shut my eyes and all the world drops dead. I think I made you up inside my head.
Sometimes poems are just about words and the general nonsense of life, especially if they are written by the comic Spike Milligan.
You must never bath in an Irish stew. It's a most illogical thing to do, but should you persist against my reasoning, don't fail to add the appropriate seasoning.
As we draw to the end of the year, now to the poets who console. The 13th century poet Rumi is undoubtedly the most revered Persian and Muslim poet in history. A proponent of Sufism, a branch of Islam rooted in mysticism, Rumi's poetry is filled with guidance on how to live a spiritual and meditative life. This poem, for instance, exhorts us to consider that even life's hardships should be embraced, because they can, unbeknownst to us, lead us into new delights.
The guest house. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
We turn to poetry in challenging times, as a poem can offer clarity and help us with the complicated business of being human. Learning from adversity is something most of us have experienced over the last 2 years during the pandemic. My mantra during this time has always been to tell myself, everything is going to be all right, which is why I wanted to include this next poem by Derek Mahon, another great Irish poet.
Everything is going to be all right. How should I not be glad to contemplate the clouds clearing beyond the dormer window and a high tide reflected on the ceiling? There will be dying. There will be dying. But there is no need to go into that. The poems flow from the hand, unbidden, and the hidden source is the watchful heart. The sun rises in spite of everything, and the far cities are beautiful and bright. I lie here in a riot of sunlight, watching the day break and the clouds flying. Everything is going to be all right.
And now, for our final poem of the evening, we'd like to share a recording of Helen, reading at my poetry recital here at the National Theatre in 2017. It's the wonderful poem, Wild Geese, by Mary Oliver.
You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about your despair, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, and the mountains and the rivers. And meanwhile, the wild geese high in the clean blue air are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.